the zone, the qualified opportunities zone itself gets approved, designated by the local governments, the state governments, and then gets approved by the federal government. So there's an approval process for the zone. The qualification of the fund itself is they are self-certifying. Okay,
oh boy.
A fund that believes it's a qualified opportunity zone fund self-certifies to the IRS, we are a qualified opportunity zone fund. Of course, that doesn't mean that it is one or that it qualifies, but it's not as if you have to ask the IRS and they come and examine you. You just say, we are, and then maybe at some point you get audited and they decide you aren't. But it's a great question. There is no there's no piece of paper that a qualified opportunity zone fund can show to its investors saying, look, it looks like a plaque on our wall. We've been approved. That's not how it works.
Okay, all right. So now if I'm an investor and I have these capital gains and I'm looking to invest in a qualified opportunity zone fund, is there can I go to the IRS website and find a list of ones that have designated that, or do I have to just know somebody, or how does that work?
I don't think the IRS has a list, although it's possible. But if you use Google, and you Google qualified opportunity zone fund, you will find a bunch of them. They're from very large ones to very small ones.
Right, and then these opportunity zones, they exist in every state of the United States.
They do,
right?
Yep. I mean, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of. I think in my most recent blog post, I actually said how many there were, but I've already forgotten.
I think there's about 8,700, I believe.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there's a lot. So, we need a resource out there that actually aggregates this data so that investors can figure out where their zones are and what the funds are. That would really be a good resource, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, for your listeners in particular, I should point out, you can do your own. Okay? Mm-hmm. You don't need somebody else to create a fund. You can, if you want to do a project in a qualified opportunity zone, you are a qualified opportunity zone fund yourself.
Awesome. That is a great piece of advice and news. I think probably the only thing you really need at that point, Mark, is a really good lawyer, I would think, right?
Yes, someone familiar with these rules. Because I should say, I mean, it is the sections of the Internal Revenue Code that deal with this. They are complicated.
I tried to read them this morning.
Oh,
they're very complex.
Code section 1400Z1 and Z2. So they're not simple.
No.
Yeah. And again, Mark, let's just piggyback on what you said before, because these funds you can kind of self-create. I would imagine there's no restrictions on the fund owners to market these funds. They could probably do whatever they want, right? In terms of bringing it to accredited investors, non-accredited investors, people looking for crowdfunding opportunities, where to put their money. There's probably no rules at this point. Is that right?
No rules. Yeah. So when you're selling interest in a qualified opportunity zone fund, you're selling a security. So it's just like any other security. So you can sell them under Rule 506C and to accredited investors only, and advertise, or under 506B, or even under Regulation A or anything else. Now, these are probably great candidates, especially for Rule 506C, just because, who has the most capital gains every year? The answer's got to be accredited investors, right? I mean,
correct.
Ordinary retail investors, you have some. Your mutual funds had a capital gain distribution, but you're probably talking about the fairly well-off people being the principal investors. Let me just mention one more technical rule because it's kind of counterintuitive. So let's say you bought $100 worth of stock and it did really well, and you sell it for $220, so you have $120 of gain. under many of the tax deferral rules in the Internal Revenue Code, you would have to invest that whole 220 in the replacement investment to be allowed to defer the 120 of gain. But not this one. In the Qualified Opportunity Zone Fund legislation, you only have to invest the 120. You invest the gain portion, not the entire investment. So that's a pretty generous rule.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's a great rule. It's almost like, from a real estate perspective, it's like a 1031 exchange on steroids.
Well, that's the thing. But you hit it exactly on the point. This is the Qualified Opportunity Zone funds are, for as long as they last, they're actually better. They're more generous than Code Section 1031 exchanges.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Mark, Vicki, go on.
It would appear that really the only rules or regulations as far as IRS and the Treasury is what money you invest in the fund and when you invested and what you invested on. But everything else is like you can do what you want.
Do what you want. That's right.
Do what you just invest it in a qualified zone in a certain period of time to realize the benefit.
That's right. Yeah. And as I say, you don't have to find someone else. You can find a list of the qualified opportunity zones in your area.
Right.
And you might consider if you were thinking about an investment in one of those anyway, buying a piece of land, developing it or something, I mean, this would be a great opportunity. And you can do it yourself or get together a group of, your friends, and you are a qualified opportunity zone fund.
Boy, what an opportunity. What a great thing that we got going on right now. Mark, I have one more question for you regarding these funds. Now, obviously, the fund is going to be tied to the performance of the assets. So what if you invest money into a fund and the fund loses money or the development doesn't work or for whatever reason? I mean, that's a concern for investors, I would imagine, right? I mean, isn't that a big-time worry?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because really it's great to save taxes, right? We all like saving taxes, but you don't want to let the tail wag the dog. So the mere fact that, oh, great, I'm going to be able to, defer taxes does not make something a worthwhile investment. So, if you, in my example, take that $120 of capital gain and invest it in something that then goes down in value from 120 to 40, you are not ahead of the game. So
that's right. It's not a good deal. Right.
You got to earn the tax to defer it. Until you earn the tax, you can't defer it, and that just implies that you're successful in what you invested in.
Right. So you've got to make you can't let the tail wag the dog. These have to be good investments to make sense. Think of the tax savings as kind of the icing on the cake, but you got to get the cake.
Right.
Right. That's right. I mean, I would imagine somebody like Amazon.com can afford a loss here and there, but the typical investor probably would get a little upset about that. So, they have to be very careful as to what fund they're investing their money in, and if they do it right, they get their tax benefits, and it sounds like it's a great program. Really, really amazing.
It is a generous tax program, and I guess if you're investing in someone else's, I would invest. Well, this is always true, but especially here, invest with a reputable sponsor because.
Right.
It is easy because of these complicated tax rules. It would be pretty easy for a fund to fall out of compliance with the tax rules and destroy all the tax benefits. Not because they're bad people, but they're out developing real estate. They're not keeping close track of compliance with these complicated tax rules. So invest with a sponsor that is going to remain compliant.
Yeah, that's why they need good accountants, good auditors, and of course, good lawyers. So speaking of good lawyers, Mark, you want to give out your information in case somebody has any questions? How to reach your website?
Well, let's see. What's the best way? The simplest, well, you could go to my blog, which is www.crowdfund, spelled the way it sounds, crowdfund, all one word, and then ATTNY for attorney, crowdfundattorney.com. Or you could pick up the telephone and call 856-661-2265. Or failing that, if you can just remember my name, Mark Roderick, and you Google Mark Roderick crowdfunding, you will find me.
Right. Yeah, Google works sometimes. That's right, exactly. We'll put all this information in the show notes for the people who are listening out there. I hope you are listening today because this is really a major, major topic, and we were bringing you some really good information from a guy who really, really knows this thing very well. So, Mark, I got to tell you, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. This has been great. Really, really good stuff.
It is always my pleasure speaking with you guys. Anytime.
We love it. Thank you so much.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Vicki, or anything?
Well, no, but I read in the paper today that Henderson, which is outside of Las Vegas, is now going to be building a campus for Google, and I tried, but I could not find any place where they were using it as a qualified opportunity zone, but that could be something else that's happening, and it's all around us, wherever you live. It's everywhere, wherever you live. You just have to find where the zone is, and you can find that every state has its own zones, every city has its own zone, and
wait a second, Vicki. I just have one question for you. Qualified opportunity zones are like economically distressed areas. I thought Las Vegas, everywhere in Las Vegas was just, everyone's rich and famous. Isn't that how it works?
Well, everybody has a closet, and every closet has something in it.
I'm just kidding, of course. Okay.
Yes, you guys out there are listening to the Mappable USA podcast on www.mappableusa.com. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to the show. Go to the website. If you have a question for us, ask a question. There's a place there for you to do that. If you want to be a show guest, you want to come on and talk to our audience like Mark has today, there's a place there. You can fill that out on the guest tab. We look forward to it. Subscribe. We are being syndicated all over the place right now. We appreciate all your support, and we'll come at you next week with another episode of Mappable USA. Mark, thank you. Vicki, thank you. Everyone out there, have a great, great week. Bye.